And welcome in to the Wheelhouse here at Elevation 5280 Sports and Lifestyle. Mark Saxton once again filling in on this Sunday, special Sunday afternoon edition of the Wheelhouse. Michael Spillane with you as well. Mark, we are in the thick of it here in March Madness, mid-March on our calendars. It's always a good time of year. Spring has sprung. March has become mad, and here we are. Brackets probably already busted all over the place, and I think it was like 7% of the brackets were only 7% were 100, whatever you want to call it, unbroken, if you will, after the first set of games on the men's tournament. But Mark, how are you I almost said this evening, this afternoon?
Man, I've been great. Been able to just lounge around and watch basketball all day long. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, if you notice that this is where they always put the like vasectomy commercials and all the beer commercials and yeah. So it has been a crazy first couple of days in the tournament. We're going to dive into the men's and the women's side, see who's leading our network tournament bracket. Over 300 entries, by the way, on our network bracket. So there's been a lot going on. My bracket, my winner on that one is already out, as St. John's lost a close one yesterday to Arkansas, led by John Calipari, Rick Pitino. Those two guys go way back in the day, and that was a 10-2 matchup, Mark, that I don't know if anybody really gave Arkansas all that much love in this one, and they took care of St. John's.
They did, and I agree. I think everybody had them off, and I mean, winning by 9. I mean, against the St. John's team, obviously known for their defense, putting 75 up on them. If I'm Arkansas, I'm saying why not, right?
Yeah, I think if you have John Calipari as your head coach, almost anything is possible. He's going to put the guys in good positions to get buckets and to get wins in this tournament as they reach the Sweet 16. I think it's a 16 that John Calipari has led to not only an NCAA tournament, but a Sweet 16 berth as well. We all know him from his Memphis, Kentucky days. So just another team as well. Rick Pitino, obviously the second season as St. John's head coach, really has turned that program around, playing in the Big East. And yeah, they just came up a little bit short yesterday. So that kind of, again, that screwed my bracket. And I know a lot of the sentiment around this time is we don't care about your brackets, but we are talking heavily on brackets today and the scores from around the tournament. A couple of games in action as we speak right now. Duke taking on Baylor. Duke has a 16-point lead with around 13 minutes to go in the second half. Kentucky, Illinois will get started here shortly. Alabama, St. Mary's will get started here shortly. And how about that 12 seed Colorado State with the upset on Friday? Yeah,
I'm going to show you some love.
I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it again today.
Gotta be proud. What a big win. And you know what? Against Maryland, they have a shot at punching their ticket to get into that Sweet 16. That's another team. If I'm them, hey, I'm saying why not us?
Yeah, that game will get started in a couple of hours. Ole Miss, Iowa State, a couple hours. New Mexico, Michigan State, a couple hours. Only one game on the men's side, final today. And it was a crazy one, Mark. I don't know if you watched it, but Florida and UConn were just exchanging punches all game long. It was a fun one to watch, and Florida eked it out, to say the least. I don't know. What's smaller than an eke is what they did, because that game was absolutely nuts, coming down to the final second. So UConn's bid for a three-peat is now over. Obviously, they have won the last two national championships on the men's side, and their run is officially over. Don't know if you saw Dan Hurley, the clip of him leaving in the tunnel after the game. He said I think the Baylor, I don't know if it was a Baylor staff. I didn't see any players, so it must have been Baylor staff walking out in the tunnel to go to the court to start warming up and getting ready or whatever. And he said, I hope they don't do that to you guys. And I'm assuming it's the officiating because this guy, all he does is talk about officials, it seems like.
Yeah.
So he said, I hope they don't F you like they did us, Baylor. So Dan
Dude,
Hurley,
what a crazy game. I couldn't believe, and I did pick Florida to win, but I didn't think it would be that crazy of a game. I didn't think it'd end up being that close. It definitely could have gone either way. And for my brackets and my gambling sake, I'm glad Florida won. But wow, that was crazy.
yeah. So, and another bracket, I had Florida winning the whole thing. Now I'm a little scared because, well, UConn's a good team. They're well coached. I think that Dan Hurley has done a good job since taking over that program a few years ago. And so, at least in one of my brackets, my Final Four is still alive. And in our network bracket, um, well, three of the four is still alive, Mark. Auburn, Duke, and Florida, because now St. John's is now out of it. Um, so I still hanging in there, but not a good rank, not a good rank when it comes to this bracket. I'm 246th out of 315. Not a good look, not a good look. But yeah, I think St. John's, maybe not a lot of people had him going that far, but they did. I think they screwed over enough people's bracket. Wisconsin losing to BYU,
That
that
killed
one
me.
kind of, yeah, that one kind of got some red marks on some people's brackets, I feel like, as well. How's your Final Four looking? Still intact?
I'm same as you. I got 3 or 4. I've got I got Duke, Auburn, and Houston. I've got Duke taking it all in this bracket. 14th place out of 315. Like I said, SJ messed me up, and uh, we were just talking about him. BYU and Wisconsin, that really killed me. But overall, I'm looking bad. I'm not looking bad. I'm clinging. I'm clinging on.
Yeah, a lot of red marks on mine. This work pool that I filled out. I don't know how you fill out brackets, but mine's got to be all color coordinated, as you can see. A
Like it.
lot of green on this one, actually, Mark. I was undefeated in the South region on this one, so still intact on that side. Still intact on that side. Iowa State, Ole Miss, once again coming up here shortly. New Mexico, Michigan State coming up here too. So there has been a lot of shakes. Also, I think McNeese surprised a lot of people in that
Yeah.
Midwest region as well
Yeah,
as
Memphis
as
saw
they
it coming, didn't they?
yeah, as they took out Clemson. A lot of people had Clemson going to the Sweet 16 in a few brackets that I saw. So it was one of the bigger upsets until once again Colorado State knocked off number 5 Memphis. So there's been a couple upsets. I mean, the 8-9s. Do you consider those upsets, the 8-9s?
No, not when they're that close. A 10 or a 12 beating a 2 or a 3 is what I consider an upset.
Yeah, 12-5. That's a pretty.
Yeah,
I think that's a
definitely.
pretty remarkable one. Obviously, we haven't seen any 16s. We haven't seen any 15s. We haven't seen any 13s. Just kind of your stand 2-12 over fives. That has been probably the biggest one so far. And then of course BYU as a 6 knocking off Wisconsin. That one, that one's kind of, I don't know how you feel about that one, but it was okay. A lot of people upset at the ending of that game as Wisconsin threw up a final shot pretty close. It was like a 5-footer right next to the basket. A lot of people said that that dude was fouled, nothing called, and then BYU proceeds to win that game. So in this bracket, I did have Wisconsin into the Elite Eight. So that one kind of screwed me on the East bracket, but I had them eventually losing to Duke. So I guess I'm still alive.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
that was a crazy game. But I mean, watching BYU, I didn't really watch them religiously all year, but I kept an eye on them all year. And they're way better of a ball team than I think they were given credit for in that going into that Wisconsin game. I think 6 is the right seed for them, but it was way closer. It was like a 3 and a 4 playing together, and that was a questionable call. But I feel like the refs were calling everything up until that point. I think that was probably the biggest problem with that no call at the very end. Either way, you got to tip your hat to BYU getting it done.
Yeah, total. All the credit goes to BYU on that one. As we're gonna pull up the the network bracket challenge here. As once again, I had over 300 people in this, and that's pretty remarkable to have. You see right there in first place is the guy you're filling in for right now, Matt Mascarenas, 410 points so far in this one as he leads. And again, if you're ranked number one out of 316 people, Mark, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. Yeah, you're doing all right. Tied for fourth in there, Nick Archuleta, one of the co-hosts of Undrafted, Uncensored. He has Duke win it all, so he's still alive. There's Pops right there, tied at number 4 as well, with Duke winning it as well. As we scroll down here, yeah, there's been a lot of shaking and moving. Nobody on this list, if you see the the top picks here, nobody was stupid enough like me to pick St. John's to win it all, Mark. So there you go. Nobody has them, and there you are, tied for 14th with Duke winning it.
And just clinging on, like I said, just clinging on, hoping the last set of games go my way.
Yeah. So yeah, Matt Mascarenas is hanging on, tied for first place with Jacob. They both have Houston winning that one, and then Matthew Smith right there also tied with 410 points. Has Alabama winning it? How about that? Alone, I guess not alone. The only 2 people picked Tennessee. How about that? Is that a surprise pick to win it all?
It is. When I saw those two, I was like, they've got to be fans. They've got to be fans of Tennessee, or they know something we don't.
Yeah, Auburn at the top, 4 Florida's at the top, some Duke. How about Michigan State? Tied there for 14th. Obviously, maybe a fan as well. Sparty Party is their handle right there, and there you go. You see the username for that one of that Tennessee picks, Sleepers.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that definitely is a sleeper pick.
Oh yeah, and that just and that could also be one of those guys. You got what 65 brackets you can fill out. So probably just trying all kinds of different combinations.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of Duke, a lot of Florida, actually more Michigan State than I would have thought. A few Houstons, a couple Alabamas, and 2 Tennessee, two Volunteers. Are you surprised that there's only 2 Auburns in this top part of this?
I thought for sure I'd see a lot more Auburn with the Duke and the Gators.
Yeah, so once again, I am not doing too well, and I probably won't win anything. I won't win any money. I won't win a jersey. I won't win myself tickets that I'll eventually buy for somebody. So there you go. That's how we're rolling right now on the men's side. But again, the work pool side though, is still in the running for $200 in that one, Mark, and not bad. 29 right in the first round.
Like that.
Yeah. So still alive in that one. I don't know, switching over kind of to the women's side, I don't know if you saw the ending of K-State and Kentucky. That game was absolutely insane. K-State ended up winning that one. And that one, again, upset, whatever you want to call it, not really, as it was, they were very close seeds, a 4 and a 5 mark, as K-State really comes through. Happy to see Serena Sundell get to the Sweet 16. She leads Kansas State all-time program in assists. She had 19 points today and 13 assists in that game. So good to see that senior move on to the Sweet 16 and K-State in the Sweet 16. So that was cool. Don't know if you saw my girls on Saturday morning, absolutely running through Murray State. You could see the jersey hanging up in the background, Mark, and they're gonna have their hands full tomorrow when they face Oklahoma. And these games are being played, at least in their side of the bracket, being played in Oklahoma. So the Sooners are going to have a large contingent of fans there. Iowa does travel well, but that's going to be a tough one for them.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think, it's the equivalent on the men's side. It's the equivalent to that BYU team where, yeah, they're ranked a 6, but it's really like they're like a 4, right? I mean, and they could ball and they could be a handful for anybody. So Oklahoma's got to definitely be careful.
Yeah, so we'll see how far Iowa gets. Picking when it's for money and stuff like that, Mark, you always want to tend to pick with your head and not your heart. So I do actually have them losing in the round of 32 to Oklahoma. That game will go down tomorrow. So who do you have winning it all, by the way, on the women's side?
I wrestled around with it and wrestled around with it, but I took SC to win it all.
Yeah, I was tossing between UCLA, USC. I mean, those two teams are just so good, and eventually they they might have to play each other at some point. So they would have a face off in the Final Four if it were to come to that. And
I got.
UCLA, yeah, so do I. And they now have to go through a Kansas State or an Oklahoma or an Iowa if it gets that far. Just watched the UConn game the other day too. They're looking pretty strong. So I do have South Carolina winning it all, Mark, going for a repeat in their
Okay.
in their own respect. But in the women's, it's almost in the women's. A lot of people were like, you're going to have four number ones in the Final Four. Women's, it's more likely to happen in the women's to have all four number ones in the Final Four than it is the men's. We haven't seen any number one go down yet in either men's or women's.
Yeah.
So all that's still intact. But SC, and when I say SC, I mean South Carolina. Man, I mean Don Staley has just have these ladies so prepared. They're so deep. They probably have the deepest bench in all of women's college basketball. I think the game they won in the first round, Mark, their bench had 63 points. That's just almost unheard of when it comes to. I
How?
mean, that's unheard of in the NBA.
Right.
Yeah, so 63 points off the bench is unheard of. But yeah, going back to USC, obviously Juju Watkins, you saw her grimace a little bit. You saw her holding a hand. You saw her limping. Funny, she landed weird, was limping, literally limped over to the 3-point line, caught a pass and made a 3-pointer. But how banged up is she? Obviously on UCLA, you have Lauren Betts. I mean, just dominant inside. And I got to correct a mistake. Our last show said she was a senior. She is not. She's only a junior, so she's coming back for her fourth year. So she will have the opportunity to play with her younger sister, who has just committed to UCLA. Colorado's own, by the way, Sienna Betts will be joining Lauren Betts. So we'll see two bets. Put your bets in on the bets. As
Right. Right. No
both
kidding.
and Lauren Betts is obviously 6'5". Her younger sister Sienna Betts is 6'3". So you're going to have some tall bets to try to get around when you play UCLA next year.
That's crazy. Yeah, I for sure thought she was a senior. That's gonna be neat experience though for both those athletes and also us as fans. That's gonna be fun to watch.
So yeah, that'll be cool to see the two sisters play together. And yeah, up in that regional one, obviously it's going to be. I have it coming down, Mark, to UCLA and LSU. LSU again, just another terrifically. I don't know if terrifically is a word, but terrific coached team down there in Louisiana as well. So yeah, I think UCLA and LSU are gonna run into each other in that region. Who do you have in that regional one going at it?
You know what's funny is LSU. I was just feeling frisky, so I picked them to be upset day one against SDSU. Obviously, did not happen. Um, but definitely, I got UCLA. UCLA is going to take it. I got UCLA going to, like I said, the Final Four against USC. What's another crazy move I did with this bracket was I picked Duke and South Carolina to be facing off down there in Regional 2, and I'm picking Duke to upset. So I'm this one I went a little freehanded. I'm a little afraid of it now.
Yeah, and in regional two, I had Duke getting upset by West Virginia, so I kind of I'm kind of feeling frisky about that one as well. Duke barely escaped once again Oregon today, so I'm
Yeah,
not feeling too bad about that pick. And Oregon. I mean, Oregon had that game in hand, Mark, and again coming down to the final seconds. So, Oregon a 10 seed, Duke a 2 seed. You almost want to go with Duke anyway, but Oregon gave Duke all they could handle at their own court. I mean, they were playing in Duke at Cameron Indoor, so they were had that kind of home field advantage, if you will. Women's do it a little bit obviously different than the men's side. But yeah, I do have West Virginia as a 6 seed upsetting Duke. West Virginia, of course, has to get by North Carolina first, which is a pretty big task in its own. So not only do they have to upset North Carolina, but then they got to play again and maybe perhaps upset Duke in there. How about Regional 3, Mark? Who do you have coming out of that one?
Regional 3. I got. I'm going to take Texas over Oklahoma State. Um, or not. I'm sorry, not Oklahoma State. Ohio. I got Texas taking on Ohio, and I got Texas walking away with it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I have Texas narrowly escaping Notre Dame. Don't know if you saw Notre Dame today. They absolutely destroyed Michigan.
Like it.
I mean, they had a 35-point lead at one point. But Michigan is in good hands in the future. I mean, Swords, the freshman, they're led by two freshmen pretty much. They only had one senior in their starting lineup, so Michigan's going to be in good hands for years to come. So look out for them. But the talent that Notre Dame, I wouldn't even be upset or surprised if Notre Dame were to upset Texas because of the firepower that Notre Dame has. Hannah Hidalgo is just an unbelievable point guard for the Fighting Irish. So I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Notre Dame came out of that Regional 3 side of it, Mark.
Yeah, Notre Dame. And at Notre Dame, I feel like would have been a great dark horse pick. I just they've been coming in. I mean, you want to talk about preparation and being prepared. These girls going out there and getting it done, being able to. I mean, they handled Michigan, 21 points. They handled them. So
Yeah.
I don't mind that pick at all.
Yeah, and like I said, they had a 35-point lead at one point over Michigan. Again, I just meant Michigan's a young team. Again, they'll be in the thick of things here in the next couple of years, and so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it came down. But Texas has that experience. I think if I'm not mistaken, all five of their starters are seniors. Um, Taylor Jones and Shea Holly, the two seniors leading that squad. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Texas ran things in that Regional 3. Regional 4, we just kind of talked about. I have USC beating Oklahoma in that one, which leads to I have all four number one seeds, Mark, in the Final Four with South
Yes, you
Carolina
do.
leading it. But I mean, again, women's side, I think it's a little bit easier to pick the number ones coming out of all four regions. Um, I guess especially if you've watched the game, if you watched the women's game all year long. Um, like I said, South Carolina is just so deep. Like we mentioned, 63 bench points the other day. Again,
Dangerous.
Texas, they just have the experience, the senior leadership. USC, they have generational talent in Juju and Kiki Rice over there, and UCLA obviously with generational talent and Lauren Betts. So and you know, I was excuse me, I knew it was coming. I knew this
God
news was
bless you.
coming. But yeah, UCLA with Lauren Betts and Gabriela Jaquez and just those leaders on that UCLA team is absolutely incredible too. So who are your final four?
So my final four I got is USC, UCLA, TCU, and Duke, and I got a TCU and
Ooh,
USC final.
I like that TCU pick. I like that. Um, I do obviously have Notre Dame coming out of that against TCU. I was watching the games today, and they were calling the TCU Louisville game the Haley Van Lith Bowl because she started her college career
Yes, she
in
did.
Louisville, and obviously went to LSU and did some good things there. She had a very hard time guarding Caitlin Clark in the Final Four game, but LSU eventually got some revenge the year after that. But the yeah, I like we mentioned, Haley Van Lith has been absolutely incredible. The Big 12 Player of the Year. I was just watching that K State Kansas or Kentucky game, and they I forgot who they mentioned was the transfer of the year, and it wasn't Haley Van Lith, it wasn't Lucy Olson, and I thought it would have been one of those two ladies to be transfer of the year. I didn't even know that was a an award you can. I didn't
Yeah,
know that was an award you
Allen.
can win. But with the transfer portal being so dominant in college sports now, I guess you can come up with an award or a category of transfer of the year. And I forgot who they said it was, Mark, but I was very surprised not to hear Lucy Olson or Haley Van Lith's name in that category because we saw what Lucy Olson did yesterday against Murray State for Iowa. 18 points, 13 assists, a career high, 13 assists. And then obviously Haley Van Lith winning Big 12 Player of the Year. And neither of them, and not only that, Lucy Olson, unanimous Big 10 all conference team. And neither of them were in the, I don't know if they were in the running, but neither of them even mentioned as transfer of the year.
So I just looked it up, and they're saying for Kentucky, Georgia, Amour.
Oh yeah, she did have a good game this today, even in a loss. Yeah, and I forget where did she transfer from?
He transferred from. Stand by.
Yeah, she did have a terrific game today for Kentucky, the senior, and yeah, I'm not upset by that. I guess.
Right. You know what? It's my phone. Just nice and slow. Virginia. She transferred from Virginia. Virginia
Okay,
Tech.
so yeah, that was a good transfer. That was a good get by Kentucky, and she had a terrific game today for Kentucky. Even in a loss, again she actually missed the final shot as time expired, which
Oh,
was kind of
bummer.
heartbreaking. Yeah, she did have that is annoying when you open up a page. And yeah, she played 44 minutes today, had 18 points, 3 of 9 from a 3-point field, the 3-point line. Clara Strack, 22 points for Kentucky. Lawrence, 15 points for Kentucky. Tiani Key off the bench had 13 points for Kentucky. But it was just not enough to hold off this Kansas State team. And this is why I picked Kansas State because seen a lot of their games this year, Mark. Like I mentioned, Serena Sundell, 19 points, 14 assists, the senior. Good to see her. But Tamara Poindexter absolutely went off. How about this, Mark? 8 of 15 from the 3-point line for Poindexter. Not be stopped. Aoka Lee, the center, big center down there, big and physical, 16 points, 9 rebounds. And then Kennedy Taylor, 11 points off the bench. So these are both two very well-rounded teams. You can get scoring from all three levels on both of these teams. And again, it went to overtime, and Kentucky lost by a point. So that just shows you how evenly matched they are, how good of a game that was.
And I picked Kentucky, and I didn't. To be honest, I didn't realize the kind of firepower K State was coming with, and yeah, I wish I would have watched that game. I was watching the men's side this morning and this afternoon, so I didn't even get to watch it. But bummer for me.
Right? Yeah, it was a very very I guess it does that on every page open. But yeah, it was a very exhilarating game to watch. And once again, I'm excited for TCU Louisville to see what and like we mentioned before, 4 of their 5 starters, Mark, transfers for TCU. And again, we talked about this before, for them to come together, to gain that cohesiveness, to gain that chemistry, and pretty much a short amount of time has been nothing short of amazing for TCU. So I
Honestly,
like.
dude, it was you. You sold me on them. I mean, I knew they had. I knew obviously the big transfers, but I didn't realize 4 or 5 of them. And then when you were spitting some of the stats out, was it last week or the week before when we were talking about it? That's what sold me. I was like, you know what, dude, I'm gonna pick TCU to go all the way and lose to USC.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like that pick. I kind of like a. I I don't know if you call it. I mean, they're a number 2 seed, so it's not really a any kind of upset. Even if they go against Texas or whoever, it's still really not much of an upset. That would be a crazy game to go to. TCU and Texas, obviously both
Oh yeah,
teams located in Texas.
right.
I don't know where that game would be. I don't know where I don't remember where the elite or the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight is going to be played, but that would be a crazy, crazy game. I'm sure there's some kind of rival between TCU and Texas, or some kind of hatred, some kind of something between those two teams, between the Longhorns and the Horned Frogs. So look out for what could be a Texas clash there coming out of that Regional 3.
Right.
So that could
That would
be,
be fun. That would be
yeah,
fun.
yeah, that would be a fun
I'm
game.
actually I'm looking it up right now where they're gonna play out in the championships. Obviously, it's in Tampa. The championship. Um, the Sweet 16 is gonna be played. Of course, you know when you open a page, it has to freak out, right?
I know some of the games are in. Maybe that's a men's side. Some of the games are going to be moved over to San Francisco. By the way, do you like that the men's and women's tournament are being played at the same time?
Hate it. I hate it because there's a handful of teams that I want to watch with the men's because I feel like there's a lot of games that comes down to this point where you're only keeping an eye on one or two, one or two maybe a weekend. Where when the women's, I feel like the seeding is way more accurate and you get way better and closer games on the women's side. So I hate that they're run at the same time, but I don't know how else you could fix it or do it.
Yeah, unless you got to start one of the two seasons either earlier or later because they start at the exact same time, and you can't really have if you start the tournament right after the conference championships, unless you just cut out the conference champion. I don't know what you would do, but yeah, you can't leave like a 3 week gap in between the season when the tournament starts to try to fit one tournament in there, because these tournaments usually take about what 2.5, 3 weeks to complete. I mean,
Yeah.
there's games every day. Um, I mean, what do you think these locker rooms are like when you beat a team? You really only have a day to prepare, to watch film, to do whatever for the next team.
Yeah, no, and honestly, with some of those teams, especially you got to think about it, if you upset somebody, and not saying that any team's going in there expecting to lose, but now you got to get over an emotional win like that, get back to work, and on top of the regular study and preparation and everything else.
Yeah, that would be a quick and crazy turnaround to try to, like you said, just like K State in the women's side went through a few minutes ago. You get a 1 point victory in overtime, and you're celebrating your seniors. You're just celebrating, and then you again, depending on where they move the, I don't know. I don't know if they're moving the Sweet 16 for women away from kind of the top 4 seeds home courts, which I don't know if I'm a fan of that either, Mark. Do you think that the women should be playing on neutral ground like the men's do, or do you like the top 4 seeds hosting?
I like the top four seeds hosting. I think it's more fun. You get the student section involved. You get the fans. There's in any sport. I mean, college sports is the greatest when it comes to fan interaction. It's not even close. So I love to see the connection between the fans and the players, and buildings just erupting when great things happen. And looking at it, the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight for the women's this year is going to be in Birmingham, Alabama, at Legacy Arena, and Spokane, Washington, and Spokane Arena.
The Sweet 16 is going to be there.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and then I guess you still get like the travel elements like you would in the regular season. You gotta hop on a plane and hop, skip, and jump over cross country perhaps. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like because college teams and they travel so well anyway. You know,
Right.
obviously the game here in Denver between who was it, Michigan and oh, I forgot who they played. I mean, it would be cool if CSU was playing regionals here in Denver. That would have been pretty awesome. But I forgot who it was. Michigan and who'd they beat? Texas A&M. The Texas A&M Michigan game was here in Denver, and I mean Michigan football, basketball, probably baseball, whoever. I mean, they travel well. So Ball Arena, where obviously the Nuggets play, was just packed full of just Wolverine fans all over the place. I mean, I even saw like a Tom Brady jersey walking around. That's how well and deep they go. So they roll pretty deep, heading out to other cities. But I would like the same kind of neutral ground for the women's side as well. I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm not saying it's one sided because we've already seen um, some teams go down. Obviously, Kentucky was playing at home and they just lost to Kansas State, so it
Right.
it, it is a home field advantage, but it's not. If that makes any sense.
No, I get it. I definitely get it. Like, and I do agree with you. College sports, college fans, they do for the most part travel extremely well. Like I said, I don't know. I can't get over, and maybe this is just too much of a fan in me, but I can't get over that connection that you're gonna always get at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
And
like
again,
Dorothy. I'm like Dorothy. There's no place like home.
there you go. There you go. So yeah, we'll see what happens on the women's side once again, as just a couple of games going on right
Who do you got in
now
your final four, real quick, before we move on? Who do you got?
on the women's side.
Yeah,
Yeah, all four number ones: UCLA against USC, and then South Carolina versus Texas. And then I have South Carolina beating, drum roll, UCLA.
gotcha. I know. You said you had all. I didn't mean final four. I'm sorry. I meant who you got taking it. I knew you had all four number ones. I didn't hear who you had taking it.
Yeah, until South Carolina is dethroned, I don't know how really you can pick against Don Staley and that group. I mean, it is again just a deep team, man. I just can't get over again the 63 bench points they had in round one. Absolutely, and I get it. You're playing a number 16 team. I get it. Some of these first rounds, Mark, you almost feel bad for those teams that
Yeah.
just barely squeak in. Like the George Masons and the whoever's, and you saw even Iowa. I mean, they put up 95 points against Murray State and blew them out by almost 40 points. And
Yeah.
Murray State was a five, or what were they, a 12 seed, so, or an 11 seed, excuse me. It was just it. I feel bad for those teams, Mark. I don't. I mean, they played Tennessee Tech their first game. They won by 60 points. Come on, 108-48.
Yeah.
You got to feel bad for those teams like the Tennessee Techs of the world who just barely get in. It's their first kind of tournament bid, and then you get blown out. And I seen a lot of social media hate against not necessarily South Carolina, but teams that, well, why are they running up the score? Why aren't they resting the starters and stuff like that? And that's probably because we just talked about it. A lot of these teams who have 20, 30, however many point leads, they play their starters up until about 2 minutes left in the game because you only have a day in between these games. So you got to keep them somewhat fresh, Mark. If you give them too much time off, they might go cold. They whatever happens in between those games. I'm sure all of these colleges have terrific, you know, what do doctors and team specialists
Medical
to help.
staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, not only that, but to help them recover, the health staff and stuff like that. So they have probably excellent staff to get them through these times. I mean, you see UCLA, Southern gave UCLA a run for its money there in that first half, and then UCLA took off, won by almost 40 points. TCU won by 20 points. I mean, Duke 86-25 is just craziness. Notre Dame against SF Austin, you feel 106-54, 51-point win. I mean, I feel bad for those teams,
Well,
and that's
look at
why.
what LSU did to San Diego, 103-48. I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just, and yeah, Tennessee over South Florida, 101-66. These None of the really first round matchups were really even that close. Kentucky, who just lost to K State, just barely got over number 13 Liberty mark, 79 to
yeah,
78. Um, Besides that, none of these first round games were close. Michigan just got over Iowa State 80-74. And again, Iowa State probably kept it close because they had just played the play-in game, so they were just coming in hot pretty much. So, Iowa State blew out Murray State. USC over USC Greensboro, 71, 25 points given up. That's it. You almost want to rest Juju Watkins the entire fourth quarter in that one. Texas over
yeah.
William and Mary, 105
And
to
you
61.
got to keep momentum built, and you got to keep the, like you said, you've only got a day to prepare, so you can't lose Mo, and you can't let anybody slow down or get cold.
Exactly. And again, yeah, UConn over Arkansas State, 103-34. I mean, yeah, it those first round games, you got to almost feel bad for those 13 through 16 seeds because, they played so hard in their whatever conference, some of these conferences people probably have never heard of, like the WAC and what is it, the Missouri Valley and stuff like that. Not even a lot of people heard of the Mountain West, pretty much.
Right.
Where like the San Diego states and the Colorado states come from. So it's you got to you're not. And it's funny because you have these 16 seeds who come in, and then the announcers on the game were like, yeah, they went 30-1 this season, and you never even heard of this team, and
Right.
they won the Southern Panhandle Conference, and you're like, what the hell? I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just crazy where these teams come from, and it's so cool that they get blown out. That's not cool, but they do. It is cool that they get their time, and you get to learn where they come from.
Yeah. And honestly, being able to open up doors and make this tournament, in my opinion, can only help one help your program, but two, it can only help during the following years of being able to open up the schedule a little bit and start competing at a higher level sooner to maybe help you get better. When it does come tournament time.
Yeah. So we will see what happens on the women's side once again. Just one game in progress right now is Baylor holding on to a 2-point lead. Almost 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Baylor over Ole Miss 44-42 right now on that one. So, and again, just a couple of games final on the women's side. Once again, K-State takes care of Kentucky 80-79 in overtime. And South Carolina, how about that? They barely get by
Barely
Indiana.
getting
I
by.
wouldn't say barely, but they won by 11, 64-53. So South Carolina moves on. As we mentioned, Notre Dame takes care of Michigan 76-55, and Duke squeaks by Oregon 59-53. As I mentioned, Oregon gave Duke all they could handle in that one. But inching back over to the men's side, we talked about that Florida UConn. It was just a crazy finish to that one. Kentucky and Illinois going at it here in a couple of minutes. And then we'll see Alabama, St. Mary's. How about the contingency of SEC teams in this tournament, Mark? You always think of SEC as pretty darn good in football, but I mean, they're representing right now in basketball. The Alabamas, the Floridas, the Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss has men's and women's in it. Alabama has men's and women's in it. Seven teams on the men's side have SEC representation. That's just, I wouldn't say crazy, but that's pretty impressive to almost excel in two sports. Normally, you see a program kind of just go forward with like Alabama. We know how good they've been in football, but their basketball programs on the men's and women's side are getting pretty darn good.
Yeah, what they start the tournament with SEC teams? 14, right? 14 of them now
Yeah, it's
is what they
crazy.
started with. I mean, just that's crazy. They all blew up in the sport of basketball. Because I agree with you. I mean, Bama's always been known for their football. Their basketball program is teetered. Tennessee, I mean, they've been pretty in there with basketball. Texas A&M, I feel like they're coming around in all sports as of late. Baseball, football, basketball, and then Auburn. Auburn's always flirted around, and then Florida coming around. That's crazy, and I think it's great for the SEC, and I think it's going to be fun to watch, especially because of all the rivalries that we have a chance at watching. On the big stage. I think that's going to be awesome to watch.
Yeah, and also Duke got a victory, obviously, today as well, as they win by 23 points over number 9 Baylor, 89-66. So Duke getting one step closer. Again, another Sweet 16 appearance for the Blue Devils. 12 of 22 from the three-point line, 19 of 23 from the free throw line. They shot 64% in this game, Mark. Absolutely crazy. Baylor only shot 35%. You're not going to win many games when you're outshot by 30%.
Well, then they were just heaving them up there, trying to make something happen. They were heaving up prayers.
Yeah, and how about this? The Baylor out rebounded Duke 32-29. 18 of those rebounds, Mark, offensive, which is
Wow.
Pretty darn crazy.
They just didn't finish today.
Yeah, Duke had 17 assists on their 29 made field goals. So once again, Duke gets the victory. Cooper Flagg has been a question mark since he kind of like landed weird on his ankle about a week ago in the ACC tournament. And, they're having no restrictions on him, nothing like that. He played 28 minutes, 18 points, 9 rebounds. So he's looking good. 1 block, 8, like I said, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. But Proctor was your leading scorer for the Blue Devils, 25 points. He only missed 1 shot, Mark. Well, 2 shots. He made a 9 of 10 from the. There's your 60% shooting. He only missed 1 shot the whole game.
Yeah, there's your stat right there. And it's crazy because we were always taught, boards are going to win the game, on both sides, and well, it doesn't matter if you have the ball if you can't shoot, right?
Yeah, like you said, Baylor probably heaving them up towards the end of the game. On the Bears side of things, Edgecombe led the way for Baylor with 16 points, and then O'Meara had 15 points. 4 of their 5 starters were in double figures. Bench, they only got 10 off the bench for Baylor, and then 20 points off the bench for Duke. So almost evenly matched off the bench. But again, when you shoot 60% from the field, you're not going to lose very many games.
Right.
So Duke keeping a lot of people's brackets intact as once again they get by Baylor. So not too many upsets like we mentioned. Were you expecting more? Are you hoping for more? Or do you have any dark horses getting to the Sweet 16 that we haven't talked about? Elite 8, anything like that?
I because last year was so crazy. Everybody's bracket was like breaking within the first couple of games. I don't know if you remember that. So this year, I didn't pick a whole lot of upsets, and I was really afraid of it happening. So I'm glad. But I think a dark horse going into the Sweet 16, definitely. I kind of already touched on it. BYU. That's a team, like I said, that I feel like they were kind of written off quicker than they should have been. Just kind of watching them on and off all year. And then the other one that I was gonna, it's Texas Tech. Texas Tech, and the reason why I say that is because I know they're number 3, right? But I thought they were a fake number 3, and I'm just gonna be honest. I did not see them coming out and doing anything great. And I feel I could be wrong, but I feel just kind of going online and kind of watching a couple of their games. It's almost like everybody felt that way for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, especially with Saint. I'm almost weary of picking Florida coming through the West now because how good Arkansas is playing. So it's yeah. I mean, Texas Tech I think is going to give Arkansas a run for its money. That particular section of the bracket, doesn't matter to me much on either bracket I filled up, because I did have Florida in this bracket, the one I'm looking at here. I did have Florida beating St. John's eventually, but on our network bracket, yeah, I stupidly had St. John's winning the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I could see Texas Tech giving Arkansas a run for its money, but Arkansas's got a lot of momentum now, because that I don't know. Do you consider that a major upset? Arkansas taking out St. John's, a 10 beating a 2, because that was
Oh yeah.
even. I mean, again, any kind of John Calipari coach team is going to be well prepared. Is going to be ready. Is going to be put in the position to, again, take out a number 2 seed if it were to happen, which they did. So I almost, yeah, sure, the number says an upset, but I almost really don't consider it an upset, Mark, because it's a John Calipari team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to consider an upset, but I completely understand where you're coming from, diving in deep and diagnosing it. I mean, yeah,
And again,
but it's still
another SEC team coming out of the woodwork too.
yeah, and it's still, I mean, and that's mostly where I'm tipping my cap is coming in at a number 10 and beating a number 2, and like I said, one of if not the best defenses in the nation, and winning by what, 9? I mean, that right
Yeah.
there, 11, yeah, no, 9, yeah. So I mean, that to me is a solid upset that you came in prepared and you handled.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't have them beating Kansas. A lot of people had Kansas going at least a couple rounds.
That was me.
So I actually did have Arkansas getting past Kansas on this bracket in the first round, but then I had St. John's obviously beating Arkansas yesterday, but that obviously didn't happen. Again, in the South region, is Auburn running the table in that? I mean, who's after watching
Yeah,
a couple of these games? I mean, Michigan State looks pretty strong. I do have Auburn eventually beating Michigan State in that South
same.
region. Michigan, who we just saw beat Texas A&M. I did actually have Michigan beating Texas A&M on this bracket as well, but I do have them losing to Auburn. Is Auburn just the all-out front runners in this region?
Yeah, no, I definitely have them running the table. Um, with my St. John's pick, because I remember I picked them to get to the final and lose. I've got Auburn which would now, I hope, in my opinion, since St. John's busted, I really hope Auburn and Florida get a chance to really duke it out in the Final Four. I love the rivalry. I love the SEC. I think it's going to be fun, and then all of that to get to the championship. So I think that's what I'm hoping for. But I think Auburn runs away with it for sure.
I mean, if it comes down to it, Mark, I mean, you could have what, 5 or 6 SEC teams fighting in the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
Is that unprecedented? You could have Auburn. Obviously, you could have Florida. You could have Arkansas, Tennessee. You could have Alabama. So what is that? 5? You could have 5 of the 8 in the Elite Eight staying
yeah.
alive right now in the Elite Eight. I mean, I don't think we've ever had that many SEC. Again, shout out to the SEC conference for again just rising
Going out.
to the top in basketball this season. So I mean, you could have 5 of the 8 teams in the Elite Eight be SEC teams.
Like I said, I think that'd be so fun, and just watching the rivalries, the tempers, the emotions. I think that would be, I don't know, especially if your bracket's already busted. That's the best case scenario when you've got nothing else to root for, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I did forget to mention on this particular work pool bracket, I actually have Florida beating Duke in the national championship, which I'm a little nervous of right now because Florida once again just barely barely got by UConn today, but they did survive. Again, when you're getting down this far into the tournament, Mark, again, like I said, Arkansas, the numbers say was an upset, but at this point, it's all matchups. I mean, you could just not match up well with a team, and they're going to have size over you. They're going to have strength over you. You're coming in as a whatever seed you are. They're coming in as a higher seed. If they have the better matchup, I mean, don't be surprised if that team knocks off a lower seed because of how they're matched up.
I agree. For me, when it goes to the Sweet 16 and on, those little numbers don't matter as much to me anymore. That's when it comes down to not only matchup but also fatigue. You know, where everybody's at in the tournament. You got these nagging injuries that all the guys, all the guys and all the girls on both sides. Everybody's got a nagging injury, or they're tired. Their bodies, starting to get drained towards the end of the tournament. And like you said, that's where teams like Arkansas, that's where teams like, you know, Auburn and excuse me, not Auburn, but Michigan State, teams like BYU, you gotta run with the momentum that you've built, and that's gonna help carry you over and carry you to the finish line. It's just it's a tough tournament, and it could be crying on the body. So you gotta hang on to everything that you can.
Yeah, exactly. Got a message here. Uh, what would you guys think of a Michigan-based South Region Elite Eight? Because it could potentially come down to Michigan versus Michigan State in that South region. Michigan obviously has to get by Auburn. That's going to be a tough task. Michigan State still has to get by New Mexico, and then they would have to get by either Iowa State or Old Miss. So there's still a little path to get through for both of these teams, but that could be interesting as well. We talked about the Texas clash that could happen on the women's side in that regional three, but how about a potential Michigan battle in the South region of the men's side?
Dude, you know what's funny? So years back, I used to build wind turbines, and there was a lot of guys from the Michigan area, and they taught me about that rivalry. And that to me, although it would kill my bracket, that to me, I think would be extremely fun to watch. Um, that that might even be hotter than an Auburn in Florida, in a Final Four type scenario. Those two teams, the hatred that runs between blue and green is, I think, awesome to watch. I even watch, even if neither team has anything to offer in football, that I tune into those games now, during football day season, just because I've learned about that rivalry. So I think that'd be fun to watch. I hope it doesn't happen because it'll bust my bracket, but I think that would be fun to watch.
I mean, I do have Michigan State making it to the Elite Eight, and then obviously eventually losing Auburn. But yeah, that Michigan again, tough task. They that would again, Michigan's a five. Again, I'm almost not trying to look at numbers much anymore. But Michigan a 5 seed, Auburn obviously Auburn a 1. That would be, I guess, considered an upset because how big of a season Auburn has had, and coming in ranked number 1. But I mean, I guess anything's possible, right? Michigan State, by the way, coming in as that 2 seed in that South region, so they definitely have a chance to make it at least to the Elite Eight. Again, they would have to run in Auburn or a Michigan to get to the Final Four, but that's still possible as things stand right now.
Yes, yes, it is. And I don't, like you. I mean, I would definitely consider it an upset if Michigan beats Auburn, just because of the season that Auburn, not only the season that they've had, but the expectations now that we all have for Auburn. And I do have Auburn playing Michigan State in the Elite Eight. So sorry, Michigan fans. No disrespect.
Yeah, I also have that as well. So again, yeah, no disrespect to to the state of Michigan, uh, as uh, as that yeah that very well could happen. But on the network bracket, I actually do have Iowa State taking out Michigan State in that Sweet 16. Again,
I have the same pick. I just picked Michigan.
yeah, again, Iowa State still has to get by Old Miss, so that would that would have to happen. So a lot of things have to fall into place. That game will get going here in about just under 2 hours. Kentucky, Illinois has finally tipped off. Mark, Kentucky with an early 9-5 lead. Illinois, how about them? One of those teams that not a lot of people are really talking about as well. They got by the playing team in Xavier, and they're taking on a pretty strong Kentucky team. But Illinois, a six team, not getting a lot of love coming into this one. I feel like not definitely not like the Illinois teams of the past, as Kentucky just took a 13-5 lead in real time. But obviously, I don't know who you have, but I have Kentucky getting past Illinois.
Same, I have Kentucky. Illinois, to be honest, I did not watch many of their games. When I saw that they were number 6, I figured they'd get out of the first round, not get out of the second round. When I saw the, obviously I picked Kentucky to play up to this point, so I didn't see them beating a Kentucky. But they've been, like you said, they've been better than years past. I mean, coming in at a number 6, and I don't know. I think they weren't really on my radar like a BYU was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In the network bracket, I actually have Illinois beating Kentucky, so that bracket's pretty much, I think, out the window. I think we can set fire to it or shred it or however it should be destroyed. So there is no. I guess there'll always be receipts, but yeah. One more team I want to get to here before we head on out is, what do you make of Purdue? Obviously, they take care of High Point in that first round, and then they go and take care of McNeese, who was, I get it. They just beat Clemson. They were probably on a high. McNeese gave Purdue all they could handle in that second round, but now Purdue is going to go up against a big team in Houston. But Purdue kind of on a mini little hot streak here.
Yeah, and to be honest, Purdue was one of those teams I was definitely keeping my eye on coming into the tournament. And I really thought that I really did. I really thought they would have been playing Clemson, not McNeese, obviously. And I thought that would have definitely been able to tell us who Purdue is. Beating McNeese for me, I mean, obviously McNeese coming off of a big emotional win. I think that's more of a curse in these tournaments than it is helpful, because coming off of emotional wins can mess with a lot of things. Unfortunately, I think it stops with Houston. I think Purdue's done with Houston, and I wish I was able to see more and see them play a higher competitive team. I mean, and no disrespect to McNeese. I mean, hey, they hung in there, they did their thing. I don't mean any disrespect to McNeese, but I don't think because of that, I don't think we were able to see if Purdue could get punched in the face and still have a plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the Boilermakers have had almost a track record of sneaking through in these tournaments, Mark. Getting to Sweet 16s, getting to Elite Eights. But like you said, I tend to agree that their run is probably going to end with the Houston game. Yeah. So and then you're going to have an SEC matchup. Hopefully, maybe if Kentucky gets by Illinois, you're going to have an SEC matchup between Kentucky and Tennessee. So that maybe some football rivalry blood will come out in that matchup as well.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be fun, especially Tennessee being, kind of big brother when it comes to basketball in the SEC. So I think, like I said, that's what I'm purely excited about.
Yeah, so we will see what goes on. Well, where will we be a week from today, as we're inching near Final Four territory and national championship territory? Once again, 2 men's finals in the round of 32 today. Florida just barely gets by UConn 77-75. Duke takes care of Baylor 89-66, and then one game in action right now. Kentucky with an early 13-7 lead over Illinois. Before we get the women's college scores, another quick question for you: do you like I mean, obviously, you're going to have differences between the men's and the women's game. We talked about where the games are played in the tournament. You know, the top 4 seeds host in the women's, and then it's kind of neutral ground, regional grounds for the men's. Do you like, or what's your opinion on the men still playing 2 halves while the women are playing 4 quarters?
I don't like it. I think the quarters would be better. I think one for a lot of it, some of the what do you call it? The longevity of the half, I think kind of, in my opinion, it draws out. You get dry points in the game, because obviously they're not gonna use all of their stamina and energy all at once. Obviously, you know what I mean. I think quarters breaking it up a little bit. I think we'd get more high pace and high ball, more exciting plays, and I think that's part of the reason why the seating is a little bit more accurate with the women's, is because you're able to see who everybody is when it's time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I had two like the quarters. If selfishly, I guess it feels like the commercials are longer when you're watching just two
That
halves. Yeah. Quarters, you're really only going to break once or twice during a quarter, and then you get the quarter break, and then you're right back at it. So, um, yeah, I don't. I, is there a reason why it's separate, or has it just always been that way?
I don't know, and it doesn't make sense because the guys that do go and play in the NBA, they're going to play 4 quarters, not two
Yeah,
halves.
and yeah, they're like, hey, we get more breaks in the NBA than we do we did in college.
Right.
So, all right. Over on the women's side, as we mentioned, a couple games final. Obviously, number 5, K State, Kansas State takes care of Kentucky. Number 4, Kentucky in Kentucky, 80-79 in overtime. South Carolina, number 1, South Carolina takes care of number 9, Indiana, 64-53. Number 3, Notre Dame takes care of number 6, Michigan, 76-55. And then number 2, Duke gets by number 10, Oregon, 59-53. Also, just one game in action right now, as we are getting 6.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss has taken a lead over Baylor, 55-50. So Baylor in jeopardy of losing. They already lost their men's team today, in jeopardy of losing their women's team.
That's not going to help my bracket.
So yeah, I mean it is cool to see like the same school on both sides of the bracket, especially when UConn they won the men's and women's national championship. Kind of getting sick of UConn, but it was
Yeah.
cool to see that both programs were able to win a championship at the same time.
Yeah, and UConn punked my Aztecs 2 years in a row. So
Yeah. So again, we will see what happens here, where we are next week as we inch toward Final Four national championship territory. But that is going to do it for us here on our little March Madness look-in on the Wheelhouse here, Elevation 5280 Sports and Lifestyle. Don't forget to like and subscribe to all of our socials, Facebook, X, Instagram at Elevation 5280 Radio. You can follow Mark on there if you want, at Marky Saxton. You can follow me at Sports Junkie 25. Follow us on X, 5280 Sports Radio. Mark is not on X because he's revolting, but I am at Michael Spillin. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, at 5280 Sports Radio. And you can always leave us comments anywhere those pages as well. And just like I got the text earlier today, 720-375-2341. This and many pods on this network are brought to you by Pikes Peak Sports Cards. If you're in the Denver, Colorado Springs area, head down and check out Pikes Peak Sports Cards. They put on shows almost every weekend. If you're into sports collecting, sports card collecting, if you're Paul Skeens, you're pretty pissed off at the card that just sold. But yeah, also obviously Pokemon cards and Funko Pops and whatever kind of other nerdy memorabilia is in your wheelhouse. And we are the Wheelhouse. But that is going to do it for us here. Mark, thanks again, once again, for filling in.
always a blast. Thanks for having me.
All right, and we will talk to you next week. And happy March Madness and merry brackets.